and you'll either hear those advertisements on the radio. Alternatively, you will see those pamphlets or leaflets that they will circulate to your houses or to your offices, and they'll mention each and every fact. They'll mention that, okay, this is the area that we are talking about. They'll also mention about the fact that that we are going that this is about 20% complete. They'll also mention that, okay, this is the area that we are going to be providing. This is the area of the flat that we are going to be providing. They'll mention all of this in their advertisement. Now, a lot of times, what happens is ultimately when one goes ahead and buys those flats, one realizes that what has actually happened is that by merely going through the advertisement, and because I, as a consumer, I was already very interested in buying a flat. So an advertisement effectively brings in that impetus, okay, to my thought of buying that flat. Now, how does an advertisement impact me? The moment I look at that advertisement, I see, oh, okay, 2,000 square feet, excellent. Okay, I see that, okay, they are promising greenery for about half an acre in front of my flat, excellent. There are certain hidden conditions in there. Now, those hidden conditions could be somewhat like this. You see a particular advertisement, you are convinced that yes, it is 2,000 square feet. Now, please appreciate whether that 2,000 square feet is the super area, which covers your balcony and which covers your, the outside portion or the porch of your flat, or whether it is just the area in which the flat has been constructed. The advertisement also does not tell you that it is promising you greenery for the rest of your life. However, whether they have sought the necessary permissions, whether they have acquired the land properly, all these things have to be mentioned. Now, it may be mentioned because, and these are problems. Now, please appreciate this, that the 2019 Act has not come into picture just like that. Ever since 1986, there was a constant realization that there are too many lacunas under the 1986 Act, and it is just not able to keep up with the times. Because you please appreciate this, that the concept of flats has grown up only now. So say in the 2000s, when 1986 Act was brought in, they were focused on only two things. One is products. Another thing is how the consumer will ultimately benefit from this entire regime. They did not even contemplate, or rather they were not able to contemplate the fact that, that there are going to be situations where builders or where manufacturers or where marketers are going to play a major role in your day-to-day life. Nobody imagined 10 years ago that you sitting at your home are going to start ordering everything online. You can order groceries, you can order any product from one of these websites, be it Amazon, Flipkart, etc., etc. At times we select our clothes on e-commerce websites. Nobody was able to imagine, and naturally this does not reflect in the 1986 Act. However, having realized what are the lacunas and what are the deficiencies in the previous Act, the 2019 Act is far more, how do I put it, is far more conversant with and takes into account the issues of today. Which is why you'll realize that many changes have been brought in. And I'll come to those changes as well. But coming to, coming once again back to those advertisement and misleading advertisement part. So all of this, because one was not able to realize, one was not able to understand, and one was not able to even do anything about it, because for every small thing, So what happens is that every single time a builder dupes you, and this is duping, because the builder will promise you that sir will or sir or ma'am will give you the flat in the next 3 years, and after taking most of the money, okay, they'll keep delaying the project. You know why that happens? Because a lot of times, and Mr. Bhimani and I, we were discussing this a few days back. A lot of times it so happens that the builder gets greedy. So while the builder has taken, say, about 60-70% of the amount from you, that builder goes ahead and invests your money into some other project. Now your money technically is not even being invested into your project. So which is why there is always a delay in the construction of your project. A lot of times we face these issues, and to deal with those issues, you have the Consumer Protection Act, which is far more stringent compared to the previous regime. How do we define the consumer? Okay. Now, if you were to compare it with the previous act, you'll realize, just 1 second, please. Let me straight away take you to the definition of consumer here. Now, is everybody able to see this? Now, let us have a look at this definition. Okay. Because you will find that this definition is quite similar to the one that you find in the 1986 Act, but there are some minor changes here and there. And those minor changes are small yet highly significant. So you see, buys any goods for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised. Now, this is a very small change, but ultimately, under the previous regime, one would always face this problem that, see, if my good is valued at a certain price, then is the amount of that good that determines the jurisdiction, or is it the amount that I have paid that determines the jurisdiction? Now, to give you an example, say if you were to invest in a flat, all right. Say if you were to invest in a flat, now that flat, the cost of the flat would be 50 lakh rupees. Hypothetically speaking, say I have paid 40 lakhs out of, say I have paid 30 lakhs out of that. Okay. Question here is, or rather, so say I have paid 30 lakhs out of it. Okay. Or say I have paid 18 lakhs out of it. Question here is, for the purpose of determining which court to go to, so whether it will be the district forum or the state commission or the national commission, what is the determining factor? The determining factor back then used to be the total amount. Okay, the total amount at which the flat used to be. Now the system, there is a proper systematic change that has been brought in. Now please see this. Buys any goods for a consideration which has been paid or promised, okay, or partly paid and partly promised. Now this is with respect to goods. Please see with respect to services. Hires or avails any services for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment. Now, deferred payment is your installments, because in larger sums, you are obviously paying it in installments. Now, those installments used to be something that the builders used to take a defense of. That no, in any case, we are giving them a leeway. So why bring me under the definition? And please see this very carefully, that the expressions buys any goods and hires or avails any services includes offline or online transactions through electronic means, or by tele-shopping or direct selling or multi-level marketing. All this was conspicuously missing from the definition of a consumer under the 1986 Act. Now, all these aspects have been brought in under the 2019 Act, just so that the 2019 Act is able to cater to the needs of today. Now, let's come to this aspect where we see that it's not only that, it's not only this that that has actually changed. If you see this carefully, okay, under the new act, a minor has also been added. Okay, a minor has also been added to the definition. Now, earlier you could not have a minor to be a consumer, and it has all come out by way of case laws. So earlier, what used to happen was, say, if minor to be, a minor to be were to be a consumer, okay, then how is the minor to sue? Through his or her legal representative. Now all of that has been broadly codified. I believe I'm unable to see this here, but I have the act, the Bare Act with me. I'm a little unsure if I'm able to see this here in this. The fact that a minor is also included. Now, you'll also realize, and as I was pointing this out to you, that the new Consumer Protection Act also takes into account various other things. So, for example, that it's not enough to say that there are going to be that a consumer is somebody who has done transactions offline or online, etc., etc. It is very important that you go ahead and define what is e-commerce. Because I'll tell you what, if you have ever seen the provider of the goods, or or somebody who's going to provide you the services, so in court their endeavor is to somehow come out of the definition of service provider. Now, how do they do that? Because see, they know it for a fact that they can't defeat you on merits. So how is it that they intend to take you out from how is it that they intend to sort of make your suit infructuous or make your complaint infructuous? By using these technicalities. These technicalities could probably be in the nature of that, either it'll be the case that they do not fall under the definition of service provider, or you do not fall within the definition of consumer. Lot of times you'll realize that this term commercial purpose has been excessively misused. So you'll see that it says that the expression commercial purpose does not include use by a person of goods bought and used by him exclusively for the purpose of earning his livelihood by means of self-employment. Now, say, once again, I'll take the example of a flat. Okay. Now, please appreciate this, that instead of a flat, if I were to invest in a commercial establishment, and I happen to have a flat of my own, etc. So say I want to invest in a shop, okay, and the builder then, sort of delays it and I approach the court. 9 out of 10 cases, what will happen is that the fact that it is a shop, the builder will say that no, it is going to be used for a commercial purpose. Then the onus lies on me to show that I'm only using that shop for self-employment. I'm not going to sort of lease out that shop. Okay. I'm not going to lease out that shop, or for that matter, I'm not going to, use that shop as for some sort of an added income. If I were to use, I'll have to show that it is meant for self-employment. And what happens is that this term commercial purpose has been excessively misused. Even under the old act, if you realize that, lot of times this happens. Now I see a lot of you are raising hands. May I just request, rather what we could do is we could take up questions, but what I would want to do is ideally to sort of not deviate. So if you are going to ask questions till whatever point we have discussed, it will be excellent. If you're going to be asking something more that we are just we are yet to discuss, okay, then my request is that we take it up a little later. Now, for all those who have raised your hands, please go ahead with your question, provided they are pertaining to pertaining to whatever we are discussing right now. Now, Mr. Avijit Chakravarti has a question. Sir, can you explain misleading advertisement and what is MIM? You're talking about multi-level marketing, MLM. Yeah. Okay. Now, so Mr. Chakravarti has asked a very important question. So, you realize that how multi-level marketing actually works. So, the moment you are told that, okay, you invest into, you invest into a particular company, that particular company, and then, you invest into a particular company, and then, you are, the onus is on you, okay, to get as many people as possible, okay, to get as many people as possible, and sort of encourage them to join this league of yours, and then encourage them to invest in the company. For every person that you get, okay, you are going to get a certain commission, say 25% or something. Now, you are also given to understand that, if you achieve a certain target during the month or during the year, we'll give you gifts. Now, the problem with multi-level marketing is this, that you are never told that, if more and more people keep joining, okay, more and more people keep joining, and, of course, you're going to be making money. But then the thing is that, what is it that you are benefiting out of it? So, a misleading advertisement in the nature that, to simply show you all the good things and say that Mr. Mayank Sapra started investing with us 2 years back in 2018 or in 2019, and now he has become an owner of Mercedes. Now, or we've gifted him one i10, or he's become a proud owner of i10. Now, what these people are probably not telling you is that Mayank Sapra's full-time job is not that of an agent of this particular company. He is a lawyer. By his income from his profession, probably he's been able to earn enough so that he can buy a car on EMI. Because they are telling you that he's become a proud owner. They are not telling you that we have gifted it to him. Do you follow, Mr. Chakravarti? Now, that, of course, is in the nature of misleading advertisement. To say, see, because, okay. Now, do we have any further questions pertaining to what we've just spoken? Okay, then let me go ahead. Now, please appreciate this, that in order for us to be able to understand that, coming back to talking about e-commerce, because I'm not going to take you through a lot of definitions. My endeavor is to sort of, give you an outline of how Consumer Protection Act works, and basically an introduction to the Consumer Protection Act 2019. And if there is a need where one feels that, all of you feel that, no, there is a need for a detailed session on a particular aspect, because the Consumer Protection Act is a rather big one. It's impossible to, cover each and every aspect within the short time frame that I have been given. But the endeavor here is to give you an understanding, a broad understanding of what your rights are, and how are you as a consumer, how are you as a lawyer impacted by the onset of Consumer Protection Act 2019. Now, coming to e-commerce, okay, so you see that e-commerce has been defined already, but please appreciate this. In order to ensure that the service provider does not say that no, I am not somebody who provides. Okay, I would not be covered under the, I would not come under the ambit of the act. The term electronic service provider has also been defined. Now, please see, means a person who provides technologies or processes to enable a product seller to engage in advertising or selling goods or services to a consumer and includes any online marketplace or online auction sites. Anybody please give me an example of electronic service provider? Yes. Can anybody please give me an example of an electronic service provider? You have the definition in front of you. Advocate Nikita Modi is asking, is there a definition of misleading advertisement? Yes, there is a definition of misleading advertisement. While I've cursorily referred to the definition, but Ms. Modi, you may consider referring to, just 1 second, please. Consider referring to section 2, clause 28 of the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Yes. Can anybody please give me an example of electronic service provider for all those who have just seen? Okay. So, because a lot of you seem to be shunned very carefully again, means a person who provides technologies or processes. Now, Aditya and Himanshi, both of them are correct. They've gone through the definition and they realize that both Amazon and Flipkart happen to be examples of electronic service providers. Now, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that, say, about 5 years back or 6-7 years back, we weren't even aware that, that it is going to become so easy. Now, for all those people who are probably of, who have seen the 90s and the 80s, realize that the advent of internet practically happened in India only in the 2000s. The concept of e-marketing per se, okay, sort of increased only in the 2000s, because till the 90s we were all at a certain level. We were just trying to adapt ourselves, because in India we were barely coping up with the onset of the computers. Every household back then did not have computers, and I believe even now they do not, but then at least we have the smartphones. Now, you must also realize and appreciate that the Consumer Protection Act also takes into account the those scams. So, a lot of times you'll find that, and you would have seen it online and you would have read about it, that, say, for example, you order something from Flipkart or Amazon. Say you order a phone, okay? They'll come with the package and all. The moment you open, a brick comes out of it. And then the provider, the service provider, and even the manufacturer and the person selling the goods refuses to take it back. They're like, I'm so sorry. A lot of cases have happened. Now, what, people came out with their own respective ways that, whenever you get a parcel from Amazon or whenever you get a parcel from Flipkart, you make a video. Question here is, what is your legal right? Now, under the old act, there was not much. You had to rely on case laws. You had to make out a case for yourself that this is what happened to me. Today, the liability has been put on electronic service provider. And that electronic service provider has been defined, just so that there is no doubt that who an electronic service provider would be and what is the scope of that electronic service provider. Now, may I also point out that lot of times you'll realize that something is being given to you. Now, Ms. Modi had asked, what is the definition of misleading advertisement? This is the definition of misleading advertisement, but I won't harp on this much. We've already spoken at length about this. Now the question that that you want that you must keep in mind, okay, the aspect that you must keep in mind is that a lot of times you'll realize that there is an endeavor on the part of certain players in the market, and mostly those big players, to either manipulate the price, okay, or somehow affect the supply chain, okay, to somehow affect the supply chain in order to impose certain products. Now that, by the way, is also covered, if you are able to make out a certain case, it is also covered by something called the Competition Act. But I'm not going to get into that aspect. I'm just on the consumer and the service provider aspect, which is called the restrictive trade practice. Now, please see this very carefully. This is section 241, subclause 41, where you find that if there is a manipulation, if means a trade practice about manipulation of price or conditions of delivery, or to affect flow of supplies, okay, in a manner as to impose on the consumers unjustified costs or restrictions, and shall include delay beyond the period agreed to by a trader in supply of such goods, any trade practice which requires a consumer to buy, hire or avail of goods, or as the case may be, services as condition precedent for buying, hiring. Now, is anybody aware? Let's make this a little more interactive, and if possible, if few of you can switch on your mics and answer this question. Is anybody aware of how probably a Zomato or a Swiggy works in terms of this manipulation of price? Now, Zomato, Swiggy, etc., all these are aggregators who are responsible for delivery of food from particular restaurants. I'm sure that most of you are aware, but for those who are not, I'm still telling you. Now, can anybody please tell me? So some people are saying that they are commissioned by restaurants. Okay. Now, when it comes to manipulation of price, you will realize that what Swiggy at least had been doing, okay, what Swiggy had been doing was that it used to, and it still does, I believe, okay, I believe even Zomato does it, which is that, say for example, at the shop, the price of a particular food item is say 100 rupees. Zomato or Swiggy on its portal will show it to be 115 or 120 rupees. Now, this, mind you, this is exclusive of the delivery charge. Okay. They show that extra amount, which is something that is probably not even known to the restaurant, that its price is being projected, and the restaurant really doesn't mind in this entire transaction if you realistically look at it, for the only reason that the restaurant is going to make that $100 for sure. It is that additional $20 that nobody is aware about. Where is this coming from? This is not a commission, mind you. This is not a commission. This is not even a delivery charge. So this question was taken up in the matter of Prachi Agarwal, and it went before the it went before the competition commission. Now, please see this, that as much as it went before the competition commission, but after the onset of this act, if you ever find yourself in such a position where the original price is something else and the price being offered on Zomato or Swiggy is something else, you will have a case under the restrictive trade practice. Now, what could you probably understand or possibly understand by an unfair trade practice? Something similar to this. Now, while you will find that restrictive trade practice has been defined, unfortunately, unfair trade practice, okay, sorry, fortunately, unfair trade practice also finds a mention. Now, please have a look at it very carefully, because making a statement, whether orally or in writing or by means of an electronic record, that it falsely represents that the goods are of a particular standard or the services are of a particular standard. Okay, you find that all these things are being done. And earlier it so used to happen that because unfair trade practice, as much as it was there in the previous act as well, the only problem was that the definition was very restricted in nature. So lot of cases, for example, represents that the seller or the supplier has a sponsorship or approval or affiliation which such seller or supplier does not have. Say when it comes to food products, okay, say some or a certain product, and they say that this is a ISI marked. Lot of times you realize, this is ISI marked. Now say, what if it is the case that it is not ISI marked? That is an unfair trade practice. Now, if this representation is being given to you, then it is an unfair trade practice. If the same thing comes in an advertisement, it is also a misleading advertisement. Now, just one more small thing that you may want to keep in mind, and which is, having dealt with all this, a need was also felt to bring in a regulator, because a lot of times what happens is that there are certain areas where you time and again find that there has to be an outside hand which must control the market. Now, strictly speaking, not control the market, but regulate the market. And that regulation of market can only take place with the help of a regulator. Now, under the new Consumer Protection Act, which is the Consumer Protection Act 2019, there is a concept which has been introduced, and it's called the Central Consumer Protection Authority. Now, this Central Consumer Protection Authority will actually act as a regulator, and it will deal with issues like violation of rights of the consumers, unfair trade practices, false or misleading advertisements. So for everything, you do not need to necessarily go to the court. You can always approach this authority first. Okay. Now, the best part about this is that it has also been given investigative powers. So if I as a consumer were to allege that a certain a certain service provider is indulging in misleading advertisement or an unfair trade practice, and if this authority comes to a conclusion that that yes, prima facie a case has been made out, they can order an investigation. They have their own people. There is a proper director general, additional director general, who have been made a part of this act and who are responsible to conduct this investigation. Now, this for your information, just for your information, this particular authority, and not many people are aware, yes, this has been notified on the 30th of July 2020. So this particular authority has already come into picture. For all those people who are affected in one way or the other, okay, and have any intention of filing a fresh case before the Consumer Protection, before the Consumer Commission, please make sure that you make use of this particular remedy first. Please make sure that these people who have been designated, and I'll share this. This is available on the website of Press Information Bureau. Okay, but this particular authority has already come into picture, and you can file a complaint to this particular authority under section 17(1)(7) of the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Because this particular regulator also has been given various ample powers to impose penalties under the act, which you will find in section 21. Now, having said that, before I move further, okay, because I want to I appreciate and I realize that I've already spoken for about 50 minutes or so. So before, I just want to end with certain case laws that I would probably want to tell you about. But, without getting too deep into those things, I wish to know if there is any particular question that you have in mind. Let's finish with that question, those questions and answers, and then maybe I could just introduce you to a couple of case laws which have led to the new Consumer Protection Act as it stands today. Yes.
Mayank Sapran, one question had come on my mail.
Yes.
There is a confusion, about that aggrieved home buyer,
the
remedy in RERA as well as consumer court also.
Yes.
One of the question was that the confusion that they can approach both the court simultaneously, either RERA as well as in consumer forum.
Okay.
Same time for the same issue and for the same relief.
Okay. Now, that is one question that, in fact, it's a very important question for all of you who are either dealing with this particular aspect or have already dealt with this aspect. Now, a lot of times what happens is that, we read just the reports, okay, of particular cases. We happen to read something online. We happen to read something on WhatsApp. We happen to read, just the particular headline, okay, of a particular case. Now, and by the way, it has been misreported, this particular aspect. So there are 3 judgments that I want you to go through. And these are very important. One is a judgment by the NCDRC, which is the National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, in the case of Ajay Nagpal versus Today Homes. The second judgment, which I want you to have a look at, is judgment of Pioneer, okay, Pioneer Constructions, which is Supreme Court. I think it was rendered by Justice Rohinton Nariman. Now, a similar judgment of Today Homes and MGM Infrastructure by Delhi High Court, which was rendered by Justice Pratik Jalan. Now, please see, when it comes to the reporting of all these 3, it has been reported that yes, you can approach all the 3 remedies simultaneously. Now, may I just point out, what has been said in all the 3 judgments is this. And so the judgment in Pioneer Constructions, okay, and MGM is just slightly different from Ajay Nagpal, because this Ajay Nagpal versus Today Home says that you have a concurrent remedy under RERA as well as Consumer Protection Act. However, you can only approach one of them. So after the onset of RERA, the mere fact that RERA has already come will not come in the way of you approaching consumer forum should you deem it fit. And please be assured of certain aspects, because this is a very frequently asked question. So this question, so please be aware of this one particular aspect, which is that a lot of times one approaches RERA. Okay, so in certain states you will realize that RERA is effective, and in certain states you realize that the consumer commission is more effective. I'll give you a very small example of a case that I'd advised on, and it's going on in Bombay. Now, all of you who are practicing in Bombay, you'll realize that the RERA in Bombay, unfortunately, okay, and a particular bench, I must say, has not been granting any stay, despite the consumer going and pleading and making out a very solid case. So a lot of times, people who are based out of Bombay have to approach the state consumer forum or the district consumer forum. Now, the reason there is that the consumer forum, okay, the consumer forum to that extent will grant a stay on alienation of a flat if you're aggrieved with a certain act of builder, where you feel that no, this builder has cancelled my allotment, okay, and he will go ahead and sell my flat out to another person. you can get a stay on that. Unfortunately, RERA was not granting it for the longest time. The State Commission granted it immediately. Now, coming back and answering that question directly, if you approached RERA, you cannot go to the Consumer Forum. If you approached Consumer Forum for the same relief, please do not go to RERA. The second aspect, which has been covered amply by the judgment in Pioneer Construction. I think it's Pioneer Builders or Pioneer Construction. You can just Google it. Okay, it's rendered by Supreme Court. And MGM Construction, M3M or MGM Construction, rendered by Justice Pratik Jalan of the Delhi High Court. Now, what has been said is that in addition to RERA as well as Consumer Protection Act, you also have a remedy under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which is approaching the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. So you can seek that this person who owes me money and is unable to pay me money, okay, and he has become insolvent, then it is upon the builder to come and tell you that whether he has become insolvent or not. Mr. Bhimani.
Yeah.
I believe that answers the question.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Mohan Wagh has raised his hand for some time. If Mr. Wagh, you are here, could you, and if you wish to ask a particular question, please go ahead with it.
One is about the builder, shows a graphic, and then in reality they don't get what is shown in the graphic in the brochure.
Yeah. Now, so I believe that is a question from Mr. Chakrabarti, which is that if I see a flat advertisement, merely a graphical representation, and then I contact the builder, but when in reality nothing is found, so according to Consumer Protection Act, one can file a case in forum or court simultaneously. So what I would suggest is, Mr. Chakrabarti, is somewhat like this, that if you find that nothing of the sort has been delivered, okay, you should take appropriate remedy either under RERA or under the Consumer Protection Act, because this is a particular remedy where you are aggrieved as a consumer and where you are aggrieved as a home buyer. So for you to come and say that that such and such things were promised to me, but nothing of the sort has happened, you can even claim damages for misleading advertisement. Nikita Modi has a question. What if we have filed a complaint with District Consumer Court and it is at preliminary stage, service of summons? Can we remedy, withdraw and file before CCPA? Nikita, no, I would not suggest that you go to CCPA after you have approached the Consumer Forum. See, CCPA generally speaking should be, if once the matter is already before Consumer Forum, in all likelihood you are going to get an answer from CCPA saying that the matter is pending consideration before the court and let the court decide. So I don't think it would be all that helpful. Now, Mr. Bhimani, Mr. Avinash Prabhune is saying that please unmute.
Yeah, he can. If I have given the rights.
Okay. Now, one Mr. RD has a question. What if a print ad is obscene and vulgar? Where can we complain? So, see, for obscenity and vulgarity, I don't think Consumer Protection Act is the right, forum. Okay. My suggestion is that you initiate appropriate proceedings under the criminal law. Now, Mr. Ravundra Vihavare has a question. If we did not get satisfaction by RERA, is it okay to go to Consumer Court or go to appeal in higher court? So once you've already approached RERA, Mr. Vihavare, my suggestion would be to see that, if you're still not satisfied with the decision that has been rendered by RERA, my suggestion is to go go in an appeal before RERA 80, which is RERA appellate tribunal as opposed to going to the consumer forum. Because consumer forum clearly is not going to deal with something that is already been decided once. In fact, if you were to go through Ajay Nagpal and Today Homes, you will realize that this is the exact position that has been laid down. Damini has a question. What is the notification of 13.720?
Hello, Mayank, you are yourself.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Good evening.
Yeah.
I am Avinash Prabhune from Nagpur.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for unmuting me. Just I have some confusion and I want some clarification from you on the aspect. Just you said the consumer, before proceeding to the consumer commissions,
Yes.
he should go to the CCPA.
Yes.
So on this aspect, just I want to have a clarification on the aspect, because as far as my interpretation is concerned, if there is any individual complaint is there, individual grievance is there for any consumer,
Yes.
then he should go to the consumer commission only, and that individual grievance will not be dealt by the CCPA, because as per the section 17,
Yes.
it is expected that consumer as a class,
Yeah.
the issue as a consumer as a class, then only the consumer is expected to go to the CCPA. Otherwise, every consumer having an individual grievance must reach before the consumer commissions only, without going to the CCPA. Please clarify on the issue.
Okay. Yes. So this is a very pertinent point that has been raised by Mr. I believe Mr. Prabhune, right?
Avinash Prabhune.
Yeah, Mr. Avinash Prabhune. Yes. So you see, Mr. Avinash Prabhune, when we go through section 17, and Mr. Avinash Prabhune has in fact given us an answer which most regulators would give to individuals. That, if you are coming as an individual, then you may as well approach the court. Now, my reading of section 17 actually says that a complaint relating to violation of consumer rights or unfair trade practices, which are prejudicial to the interests of the consumers as a class. Now, please see this, that if a particular advertisement or if a particular activity is affecting me, okay, there is every possibility that the same advertisement is also affecting other people. Now, what I need to do, say, for example, if I have to lodge a complaint against a particular builder, okay, and if I have to lodge a complaint against a particular builder, now I say that, look here, this particular aspect, okay, this particular aspect has been advertised by this particular builder. Unfortunately, at the ground level, nothing of this sort has come out, and I am one of the consumers. Now, while other people have not come to you, but they will be equally affected for the only reason that it is going to impact. See, ultimately, an advertisement is a misleading advertisement in REM. It is not only misleading to me. It is going to be a misleading advertisement to everybody who gets to read that advertisement. So my reading is that if you were to file a complaint, okay, otherwise if you are not to file a complaint, and I'll tell you this, that the consumer commission, okay, or the consumer forum as we call it, is certainly a time consuming process. So let us not forget that. My suggestion would be to approach this authority, see what this authority is doing. If the authority does not do anything, or rather the authority comes back to you and says that no, we are not going to entertain individual complaints, then probably going to the consumer forum will make more sense. It should not be a case that you go to the consumer commission and the judge points it out that why couldn't you have gone to the Consumer Protection Authority? What stopped you from doing that? Are we clear about this?
No. Sorry. Respectfully, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
Because even What I'm talking about two issues.
Mhm.
Individual grievance. If anybody has an individual grievance, then he cannot go to the CCPA. He must go to the Consumer Commission only. This is my one point. If he has a grievance as a class,
Mhm.
then he can approach to the CCPA, and
Yeah.
even he can approach to the Consumer Commission also. As per section 35(1)(c), he has an option to go to the Consumer Commission. But
Yeah.
additional remedy of CCPA is provided as per the new act. That
Yeah.
option is available if any grievance is as a class only. If there is an individual, because this is creating why I am discussing this issue on this platform, because it is creating some confusion among the many consumers.
Yeah.
Even in case of their individual grievance, they are
Yeah.
writing to the CCPA, and that is what not expected, because CCPA will not entertain that grievance, because CCPA is expected to deal the grievance as a class only. This is what my interpretation is.
Okay. Now, you see, Mr. Prabhune, the reason why I say that a hyper-technical and a rather restrictive definition or a rather restrictive interpretation cannot possibly be given to a benevolent section such as Section 17 is solely on account of the fact that, see, if I'm only going to talk about the fact that, say, for instance, as I said, that, if it is a misleading advertisement, because if it were to talk about a case that no individual can make it, because see, there is a confusion that when I make out a case as an individual, am I only talking about a case, am I only talking about myself, or am I also talking about the fact that it affects public at large? So for the purpose of Section 17, I will also need to show that, see, I am affected. Yes, that is absolutely true. But it also affects public at large. And that public at large will form a class. However, if I do not make out a case like that, then there is no point I go to CCPU. Now that's point number one. Point number two is that if the purpose of CCPU is to only entertain a class, then there is absolutely no need for CCPU to even exist. Because in India, this concept of class action, okay, this concept of class action does not happen so easily. So you have individuals who are going, let CCPU come back, and that's why I said that, see, most regulators, for example, if you were to compare CCPU, because see, otherwise there is no reason to give CCPU investigative powers. So an individual can file a complaint, but the individual in his or her complaint would have to make it very clear that this will ultimately affect people, other people as well, in addition to me or in addition to that consumer.
Sir, I am not saying that the individual cannot approach to CCPA. What I am saying, individual grievance cannot approach to CCPA. If the individual grievance is of class nature, then certainly he can go to the CCPA. That's what I am saying only.
See, Mr. Prabhune, you have to appreciate that is exactly what I've been saying from the beginning. That is exactly what I said from the beginning, that, see, my suggestion is that you go to CCPU, but please make out a case that yes, it affects other people. If you are unable to make out a case that no, it affects other people, say, for example, if it is only about say what are these issues that are covered under Section 17? Let us look into that. Violation of consumer rights, unfair trade practices, false or misleading advertisements. If you look at them as some sort of a category, okay, look at the category, say the violation of consumer rights, okay, or say unfair trade practices. What can be an unfair trade practice? It, say, some builder comes and tells me that, look, Mr. Sapra, the flat that you have booked, excellent, it has the best quality. Okay. Now, the moment I start drilling a hole into that, I realize that instead of proper POP, what there is just that sand. The sand starts coming out. Now, it cannot be a case whereby I come and say that, look here, it is only in my flat that he's put sand, everywhere else there is POP. So I say that there is every likelihood that the entire building is made of sand. Please initiate investigation. Let the CCPU take a call. Whether they feel that, whether I've been able to make out a case for a class or not. Let me not be deciding that no, because this is only going to affect me, so I will not approach CCPU. We have to deal with this entire issue where, and we cannot be giving such a restrictive definition to, and rather we can't be giving such a restrictive interpretation to what Section 17 envisages. If a person is approaching CCPU under Section 17, they have to make out that it will affect other people as well, and those people will form a class ultimately. Whether they ultimately whether they ultimately file a class action or not is irrelevant. Of course, we'll know more, and this is based on what I interpret, and this is based because ultimate purpose is to give an efficient remedy. If the remedy is not available, then you can keep going around the consumer forum. No, probably 2019 Act would also not be able to remedy the the maladies of the 1986 Act. That's exactly what is going to happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now let us also see what other people are asking. Okay. So, sir, can we have a detailed session on CPA 2019 as many new terms and amendments have been introduced? We could do that, Kitamoti says. And what are the stages for consumer forum? Can one approach? Okay. Karunakar Nayak has a question that, what are the stages of for consumer forum? So now under the new act, okay, if the pecuniary jurisdiction that has been decided is somewhat like this: 0 to 1 crore. If what you are claiming or what you've paid happens to be between 0 and 1 crore, you will approach the district consumer forum. If it is between 1 crore and 10 crores, then it is the state consumer forum that you will approach. If it is above 10 crores, then you approach national consumer forum. Now, Amishi Honavar has a question. I have filed in State Consumer Commission. So can I use in 2017, can I use the new 2019 Act since it is filed earlier? I cannot take the benefits of the new Act. So in all likelihood, Ms. Honavar, I believe you will be governed by the 1986 Act because there is a time on which this particular Act comes into picture. And it only comes into picture after whenever it was notified. So before, and it has not been given a retrospective effect. So you cannot take the benefits of the 2019 Act. Sorry. Okay. Redmi has a question. Senior citizen bearing huge losses of his prime property encroached by his tenant and which is demolished 2 years, but before MCGM advocate not producing the demolition report in High Court, where the ad interim order is pending in favor of tenant. Okay. I'm unable to understand this question. I mean, what is the question? These are the facts, of course.
Can you give me your name because it is only Redmi. So if we can go through your documents, then only we can suggest you the remedy.
Yes.
Yeah, we will have to go through your documents first. Since it is related to MCGM, it comes Mumbai Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. So we'll have to go through your documents and then only we can give you a remedy.
Yes. Do we have any further questions?
I have a question, Mayankji.
Yes, Ms. Vaishali, please.
Namaste, I'm Vaishali from Bangalore. I'm National General Secretary for Consumer Right Organization India.
Yes.
Which is so basically we have a lot of common issues. Probably you only specified the property matter.
Yes.
But we also have lot of small issues which day-to-day consumer faces.
Yes.
So probably do we have any set of quick documents wherein it's handy referral to our consumers rather than going through a challenging appointment from the lawyers. Can you give us any tips and do's and don'ts for us
Yes.
to adapt? If
Absolutely. Now, please give me one of the, please give me an example of disputes that your members, the members of your association face. Maybe I'll be in a position to, give you a very brief.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you just now mentioned about the senior citizens having some challenges with regarding to the real estate.
Yes.
Now, there have been a lot of senior citizens who have already been fighting in the court through, of course, their lawyers from the consumer point of view.
Yeah.
But they have not been very fruitful. And we have these ladies or the gentlemen who come to us and says, you somehow fight it for us. And probably these real estates are from the very highly politically background, and
Yes.
we are not in a position to fight, because they say in case if you fight with us, we'll make sure that your cases are not fulfilled, or these people are being suffering.
Yes.
So we, as a CRO India, we don't know how to take these cases forward. Should we go and speak to the minister level, or should we go to the different source of court? How do you suggest such situation, Mayankji?
So I'll tell you what. See, when it comes to senior citizens, okay, and especially if senior citizens with similar issues are coming to you, my suggestion is, depending on, see, what you've given me is a very general idea of the kind of disputes that come to you.
Yeah.
Now, what you could perhaps consider doing is this, that instead of, if the matter already happens to be going under the Consumer Protection Act, okay, then depending on the kind of, the kind of issue that is arising, you please file formal complaints to RERA. You please make those representations to RERA, because because for the purpose of real estate, okay, especially in Karnataka, as you mentioned that you are from Bangalore, okay, a lot of places
RERA, I can't hear you.
Sorry, am I audible to you now?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that in a lot of places, RERA is in fact extremely proactive. And proactive because see, a lot of times what will happen is, and as I pointed out, somewhere in the middle of my lecture, that misleading advertisement comes up in a way whereby, say, somebody has already promised you a flat, okay? What they do not tell you is that it did not even have rights over the land on which the building has been constructed. Now, if RERA is to take care of all of that for you, because RERA is generally considered to be a much expeditious remedy, especially when it comes to senior citizens, okay?
Right.
Because see, generally speaking, I would have said that please approach CCPU. Unfortunately, if you are already before the Consumer Commission, you can make a representation to the CCPU. But my feeling is that because this is a regulator under the Act, in all likelihood, they will say that no, let the court decide. Yeah. Okay. So to that extent, approaching RERA, saying that, there is a certain problem within this, and these are the kind of issues that, say the builder has encroached my land or something of the sort. Because see, it depends from case to case. If it is about a flat or a deficiency of service, then yes, Consumer Protection Act will come to your aid, or RERA will come to your aid. If it is, you happen to have some independent house and somebody comes and encroaches upon that, okay, then Ms. Panchal, unfortunately, your members will have no choice but to approach the police.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So these are issues which will probably have to be dealt on a case-to-case basis. I'll be happy to answer more questions. I'll share my email ID with all of you, so that in case you have any further questions, we can keep this as an ongoing process. Let it not end here today. That way, in case you have more questions, why only Miss Panchal, everybody else, okay, we can make it a ongoing process. I'll try my level best to answer each and every question.
Basically,
Sure. Thank you.
Registered our NGO to empower common men. You know, for a smaller thing, he doesn't have to run for the advocates and pay the advocate fees. He should be empowered. He should know his fundamental rights and how to exercise his fundamental rights, what are being given by our Constitution of India. So we are going to come out with templates, how to file a complaint or how to approach. Then if you file a complaint, if your complaint is not addressed, then what is the second level? Then how to use the Lok Shahi Din in MCGM as well as in police department and as well as in the collector department. If your complaint is more than 45 days not addressed, then you can file a complaint in the Lok Shahi Din. You can go up to the chief minister. Now our chief minister in Maharashtra has stopped this Lok Shahi Din. Otherwise, initially the Lok Shahi Din was conducted, and where the a common man who cannot afford fees of the advocate, he is empowered to approach them. So we are going to start this process, and it will be uploaded in my website. And kind-hearted advocate like Mayank Sapra, who is also doing pro bono services for the needy people. So basically, we want to empower our citizens to know what are their rights, what are the fundamental rights given by the Constitution of India, and how to exercise them. So this will be an ongoing process. I'm happy that Mayank Sapra will also join in this process.
Now, Mr. Nayak has a suggestion actually, that are there any specified formats for filing cases and also the required details and supporting documents. Now, Mr. Nayak, I would suggest that so insofar as Consumer Protection Act is concerned, if you were to buy a Bare Act, okay, which does not cost more than say $70, it has the formats at the back. But for everybody's, because ultimately I can share the format with you without any problem, but the only problem is that you have to know the basics first for you to be able to understand what is the expectation there at the consumer forum. So for every forum, the format may vary, but you do not have to worry in case you have any issues. In fact, Mr. Bhimani has pointed out that a lot of these formats are going to be made available on the website of Citizens Justice Forum. But say in case you happen to have any individual queries, okay, even with respect to formats or with respect to any issue that you might have faced or that may have come across, that you may have come across, or somebody may have brought it to your attention, you have my email ID. I'm sharing it here. Please feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to help you out in my capacity to the best extent possible.